This is PPD. You guys are watching Thorin's YouTube channel. One of the only men with a bigger ego than even myself.
Right, this is another episode of my Patreon discussion show. And usual crowd for this one. We'll see if anyone new joins us later or not. Problem is they have to figure out how to install the program that we use, which we're not going to tell anyone what it is. Top secret. You have to be in the secret No Homers Treehouse Club to know that. So what's the first topic we're going to discuss on this one? What is something jumping in mind? I think Jerky has one, right? So what is it, Jerky?
The controversy of Dynasty not allowing Spitfire to go to Seoul and have a fan meet.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know this, basically, in the Overwatch League, the different franchises, as they are in traditional American sports, are tied to a specific city. And so in this case, Seoul Dynasty is obviously the capital of South Korea. Meanwhile, the London Spitfire is in theory London in the United Kingdom. But the big problem here is both teams are entirely Korean with their players. And the Spitfire team just won the Overwatch League. And so since they're entirely Korean, they wanted to go back to Korea, go to Seoul, capital city of their home country, and do a fan meetup so they could meet all the Korean fans. And the problem is, as Lil Susie, who's like, I think the general manager or something of the Spitfire, said on Twitter, basically they aren't allowed to, because it turns out you have to ask the permission of Seoul Dynasty if to do a meetup there, because it's technically their region. They actually, that's the area that they're supposed to be able to do marketing, and it's basically, it's their prerogative. If they let you do it, you could do it. But if they say no, then you can't. So where are we going to start on this then?
Well, first off, how did they decide? They don't have anything on their website that says, here are the rules about the franchisings, that you control regions. You can just say no to other teams coming into your region. You can't hold this. It's not even on their website. No one... there's still no goddamn rule book out there that we can look at. It's ridiculous. Come on, get your shit together.
Well, there was the leaked one, but apparently that one's out of date.
Yeah, it's again.
I like that, by the way. So there was no rule book at all. Richard actually reveals it, and then they're like, "Yeah, but that's out of date." So, fuck off. Whoever you are, Overwatch, fuck right off.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from, I saw this comment on Reddit where it was one of the only Reddit comments that's ever made sense, but it said, if you look at it from the traditional sports point of view, which I don't even think that's a great analogy, because esports and traditional sports, as much as we'd like to think that they're similar, they're really not. But imagine if the Philadelphia Eagles decided to come to Boston for a fan meetup after, winning the Super Bowl. It wouldn't really make sense, right? So
I heard that, right? But that sounds like the standard move that we hear every single time, right? Which just goes like this. I can't actually think of a good reason to give for this, so I'll just invoke traditional sports. Because here's the problem with that logic, right? Are you telling me there's enough Philadelphia Eagles fans in Boston that they could even do that?
Yeah.
It wouldn't happen, would it? So the problem is, why are they doing this for London Spitfire? Because they've got all fucking Korean players. The most hilarious Reddit comments were forget that. When are they coming to London? Could you shut the fuck up and get, why are you just lying to yourself now? What, you think there's loads of people in London want to go and meet the fucking Overwatch team that's not even from the UK? Don't think so somehow.
They actually are apparently doing a meeting in London.
I've no doubt.
They are doing.
Oh yeah, of course they are.
No, after seeing all the Overwatch events that there's been, where they do those screenings or whatever, and all the people in New York go there or whatever, I can already tell you exactly what they're like without having even been. So what happens is, in a massive metropolitan city like New York, you manage to scrape together 150 people. Those 150 people, like every Overwatch League fan apparently, just thinks this is a niche thing. No one else knows about this. I am very unique and this is my identity. Haha, I love Overwatch. 99% of them never watched a single Overwatch game before the Overwatch League or before their team existed. They go along and they're all everyone who's a fucking pleb who's in the industry esports posts a picture look at this. This is New York. And I'm what, 150 people in a bar for free watching part of a game.
Sick.
You do know to people who, I won't even say cynical, are just realistic. That's actually the indictment of how small the game is. That in a massive city like New York, you can only get 150 people who give a flying fuck. And even then, it's free. It's not like they're paying to go somewhere, So, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to work in London. I'm kind of torn on this one, because on the one hand, I do think it's against the ethos of esports. Like esports is supposed to be a global thing. The whole point is like, as much as I'm obviously not a fan of it, if some like Indian kid wants to be a fan of TSM, have at it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That doesn't mean like, TSM can't do an Indian tour because fucking Wolf Gaming says no. Like, no, it wouldn't make sense, would it? Like, here's the thing. I feel like it's an example of where they made the ruling too vague, because there probably should be something within the contract that when you like get your region that says something like, you get priority over marketing in this region or something like for example, you obviously wouldn't want like London Spitfire to be able to get some like special sponsor just from Seoul or something. You'd want that in theory to go to Seoul Dynasty, but I do feel like this goes too far, especially because they're like the champions now.
Yeah,
and it's like the mecca of esports.
Yeah, I mean, this is all pretty much all the players' hometowns except for Prophet. I think isn't from Seoul.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah,
I've seen people starting to burn Dynasty jerseys because they.
all right, okay. The calm down, edge lords. Like,
we can
never be a solo Dynasty fan ever again.
Well, that's how they go in Korea. Apparently, it's like,
this just is, I guess, one of the growing pains or one of the hazards with.
I think this does put off like a lot of fans because like. It is a cool thing. Like if you could go to your hometown, like meet fans, it's always a cool thing. Like saying no to them just because it's your region. Like at a point, I get it, but like from franchising's perspective, yeah, sure. But like from fans' perspective, you just look like an asshole.
Yeah.
I think the best way to describe it is this. This is what I often say about the Overwatch League whenever they have like weird rulings. The biggest problem with the Overwatch League is that the customers of the Overwatch League are the franchises, not the fans. What the fuck are the fans contributing? Nothing.
Yeah, that is.
They're just like, it's like that hilarious thing where people, and no joke, try and tell me and Richie with a straight face, like, you would be nothing without me. It's like, you do realize when you watch my video, you contribute like, 1/10 of a cent, like, whatever. No, it's obviously not that ridiculous, but something pretty terrible. So it's like, you do realize in this particular scenario, I'm not saying fuck all of my fans. I'm just saying if it's you and you're being an arsehole, I'll give you the 10 cents back. Just get the fuck out. Like, so in that scenario, the customer of the Overwatch League at the moment is the people who paid fucking 20 million or whatever. They're the people they have to keep happy. So
and even that's,
I kind of get that in a way.
Even that's disingenuous because it's not 20 million. It's like spread over all these years that they'll actually pay it.
Yeah, it feels like they should have given them some sort of leeway. Like in the NHL, don't they do that tradition where they give each of the players the Stanley Cup for like a week or whatever, and they can do whatever they want?
You get it for a day.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, you'd think they would give them some sort of leeway just to meet fans,
Or they should just do it like the fucking communists used to do in the 20th century, where you just secretly meet up in people's houses, like, people that can be trusted and won't tell anyone. You have like a network that tells you, meet Friday at Bill's house. And then if you hear like, heavy boots on the stairs outside, you all just like get in the cupboards and jump out the fucking window.
This sounds 1944-ish, junk.
Well, here's the thing though, it would actually even thematically make sense, since obviously we all know every American sports league is inherently socialist. It's just like a mad fucking cartel where everyone splits the profits in the most anti-American fashion possible, basically.
All right, Lenin, calm down.
That's how terrible America is. Like, everyone's going on about free market capitalism. There's none in any sport, of course. Sound.
Yeah, the NCAA is the most corrupt.
It can be the Korean Underground Railroad.
Exactly.
We'll get like the 310 to Busan. Like
they smuggle the Spitfire players from Incheon into Seoul.
Isn't Incheon where you land?
Yeah.
Man.
All right, what next? What else are we going to talk about?
I guess since Owl's over, we could look at just kind of how it ended up generally. Because I was surprised at how, it was fairly successful, I would say.
Yeah.
Even though it had all these problems. And I was even like thinking them out in my head, and I wrote them down on my phone. I'm like, holy shit, there's so much stuff that went wrong. And yet it was still pretty successful.
Yeah.
And what makes you think it was successful? Like, how do you define that?
I think it got decent viewership. I wouldn't say it was like wildly successful. And
am I the only one who thinks that, like, your grand final held in New York, broadcast on television, online, getting less viewers than week one is somehow not a good thing. Apparently, I'm the only person who thinks this is like some sort of issue or something.
That is absolutely not a good thing. Like,
but I mean, it wasn't
grand finals. It should be like the highest.
I would have thought. It's the thing. Logically, it should have been like. Here's the thing. Yes, week one obviously was kind of like that. It was people were tuning in for novelty. But okay, so at the moment, right? I don't care about fucking fighting games. I will probably never watch a fighting game tournament. But as I have pointed out on Twitter, everyone on my timeline who also doesn't care about fighting games pretends they do for 1 week when Evo's going on, and they watch Evo, same as they do for Dota 2 when the International comes around. They also pretend they're into that, which is, by the way, why they themselves then go, there's only one tournament matches in Dota. It's like, no, that's just to you, mate. Like, what you've accidentally done is you're the only one who watches that. So, likewise, I would have thought for the finals, okay, surely then at least other people in esports tune in and they're like, oh, is this good? So I think it's kind of actually a pretty bad sign that they had such low viewers for the final. What was the viewership for the final? Like 300K or something?
I think
on Twitch.
Roughly.
I think across everything they estimated it to be like, I forget, it was like 470,000 or something like that. I forget. But
still horrible.
Like, you do know that, like, I think the CSGO majors in the first year or so of doing them were getting, like, I think more than that. Like, I know it got, I think the million was around like 2015 or something, but we definitely had those sorts of viewing fees very early. And the reason why I give that as an example is because obviously famously before we had the majors, viewing figures weren't that great in CSGO because they were just smaller tournaments. So even though we had like a decent player base, there weren't that many people who actually watched the tournament. So like what that makes me wonder is you had an entire season, you did geolocation, you marketed everywhere, you had more fucking press coverage than probably any league in the history of esports. Everything, social media engagement. And after all that, where are all the viewers? Meanwhile, the same week that Overwatch League finals happened was when that like PUBG Invitational took place. That apparently, if you add in Chinese viewers, had like 26 million viewers or something.
I call bullshit on that one.
Chinese
doesn't matter, mate. Even if it was a tenth, they've still beaten them, haven't they?
Yeah. A game that is barely viable competitively outdid Overwatch League for its.
Okay, here's the tweet from Carmack in 2015. So the peak for ESL Katowice in 2014 was 255K.
Yeah.
And in 2015, which is March 15th, it was over 1 million. So.
Because people will. This is a good example of like what you were talking about earlier with the traditional sports example. What people love to do in esports is be like, well, you can't compare like that because CS was out for 2 years. Like, CS didn't have 250 million invested. Every single press piece, like people marketing it in every city around the world. Remember, all these people doing all these meetups, all these things that were going on. That should be building the fan base. That should make more people interested. So, what's going on?
By 2015, Valve only had put in like $1 million in prize money. How much has Overwatch invested in like this small amount of time span? Thank you very much.
And remember, like, here's the thing. I haven't checked the client myself, so I'm somewhat speaking out of school. I'm just remembering what someone said. But I believe Overwatch League did actually do that thing where you embed it autoplay in the client.
Yeah, they did do that. But
so that means that even some of those views are like semi-fake views.
So I don't
it's just
know.
Like people idling, right?
Yeah, I don't know if those counted towards the view count or not.
Probably.
I just have no idea. It might have.
It probably does.
The problem with that though is, if I had to guess, it does, because the reason why, for example, on like YouTube, it has to be I think it's like 30 seconds on YouTube. On certain other things, like
for
Facebook or whatever, it's like 5 seconds or something. The reason why it has to be a certain amount there. It's not because YouTube wants that. You think they don't want to get every free view in the world when you just watch an autoplay video. No, it's obviously because I'm pretty sure like sponsors wanted that to feel safe that like if I see that you got 200K on views on a video, I didn't just pay you for someone to click it for 1 second and click off. So they wanted at least some guarantee that like, the guy at least started to watch the video. So if I had to guess, why would Blizzard have something similar inside their fucking client? Like they're not catering to sponsors. If anything, like every other content in esports, they want to inflate the numbers and make them go completely out of control.
Probably.
Sounds
I don't know. I thought it was still. I mean, obviously, it doesn't have the insane same level of viewership, but
it was entertaining as fuck.
I didn't think there was anything that was like catastrophically a failure. There's just a lot of
good. But here's the thing, though. This is why I'm saying, like, the context I think is important, because I agree. As a league in esports, did a pretty decent job. Yeah. Playoffs were good. There were some good teams there. But the problem is, remember, this isn't set up as an esports league. It's set up as a business. Like, this was supposed to be buy-in for millions of dollars. We're going to become a new sport. We're going to make you millions of dollars. Like, this is going to be a massive thing. Geolocation around the world. And it's like, when everyone was like, dude, I might actually make a video. Like, I know normally I never do like for Thorin versus fucking Overwatch Reddit, but I might go back and make one for the competitive Overwatch, because you would laugh so hard if you saw throughout the whole season the justifications their fans gave for why, like, not only was Overwatch succeeding, but it was killing it. Like, I'm not joking. 2 weeks in, that like the mad upvoted comments would be saying shit like, "Oh, still here, isn't it? Thought it was going to fail," as though like it was ever a possibility that, you know, it was just going to close shop after 2 weeks after everyone's bought in for like 10 million or whatever. Like, there's no chances there. And then people likewise were like, they said it'd never get here. No, actually, I don't think anyone who was a critic of the Overwatch League said it would never get to the finals of season 1. What did you think was going to happen? Like, it came up to season 1, then Blizzard would go, "We regretfully announce that we cannot run the season 1 finals. Goodbye." And then it's just like a fucking 404 URL when you go to overwatchleague.com. I don't think so. Like, no. It's like, what's mad is these people reveal that it's actually them who had such low expectations of the Overwatch League that any level of success is like amazing to them, you know?
Yeah. They're all demoralized, I guess.
Because my problem is this, like, you can't just constantly look at the future and go, "Oh, there'll be growth, bloody growth." You know, if you looked at the numbers for Overwatch League, they went down like stage on stage. Like, the average viewer number went down. So why would people who watched Overwatch Season 1, and by the way, I would actually go ahead and say Overwatch Season 1 might end up being one of the most successful seasons they do, because remember, in a couple of years, they have to find some way to go to all the different countries and play the home games. Which is going to be, which, by the way, is not only going to be a nightmare in terms of like logistics, but what's going to happen to the fan base there? Remember, imagine it's like real sports. So I'm a guy, I've just finished my work at the steel mill, and I live in Boston. So obviously I want to watch the Boston Celtics play. Oh, sorry, I can't. They're playing in China right now at 2 a.m. Can't watch that game, can I? So even my most hardcore fan can't watch this game. Like, doesn't make sense, does it? Like,
no.
So in that scenario, like, I don't know what reasons are there that anyone can think of that it would grow in the next season. It's like, why would the viewership go up next season? Especially because now you have to wait like, I think you have to wait like 6 months or something till it starts again.
Yeah, 5 to 6 months.
It doesn't start, well, first season started in late February, I think. So yeah, probably like 6 months. So there's a huge time off. I mean, there's the World Cup, I guess, but that doesn't really count.
What I love as well is...
it's going to be Korea who wins that one.
The level of fucking mad cognitive dissonance on that subreddit's unreal, because what they basically do is, if you say anything critical of Overwatch League, you just hate Overwatch and Blizzard. Even though it's like, well, what I love about that is what I've always loved about haters, is that the way they comment about you actually just reveals the way they think. Because what they do is they assume you think in a similar way, and that's how they're able to pass what they think your motivations are. So what they're telling you there, which makes perfect sense if you think about what these idiots are like, is the reason they unquestioningly think the Overwatch League is a success is because they like Overwatch and they like Blizzard. And the only reason you would ever say that it was not succeeding, despite, you know, facts and stuff, is because you hate Blizzard. It's kind of a mad way to view the world, really, but then again.
Perception.
It is Reddit. I mean,
yep.
Come on.
It has to hate something, right?
No one ever said it had to make sense.
The mob needs its pitchfork to get poked in somewhere, you know? Release some stress.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember looking at the whole list of all the stuff that I written down that went wrong in the season. It's like I have like 2 pages worth of.
Give me an example, because if it's something like a player said a bad word, like, come on, why would that affect anything?
Swapping the meta midway.
Yeah, I mean the balancing was really shit. I thought there was too little break time in between stages, and then there was way too much time in between stage 4 and playoffs, where literally even a lot of my friends that
I kind of like that one to prepare.
Like, forgot.
I kind of like
I feel like 2 weeks was like way. It was way too long. Because a lot of my friends even just forgot that it was happening.
1 week would have been enough, right? Because like
I think so.
In the LCK, like in where you have like a week to prepare for your next opponent, it's like that kind like in the playoffs, right? They have like a whole week to prepare, and you can adapt to like if anything needs to be changed. It's like that would have made sense, and like you wouldn't cut it down like LCS did, right? Like they somehow decided that like the most prestigious thing in the world, like for them, like the World Championship, needs to be cut down in time. Like what? So like I kind of like the time, but like 2 weeks might have been too long.
It did also feel like halfway through the season, I think a big reason why the viewership went down is just because the games felt like meaningless. Like especially in States 3, the games just felt completely meaningless.
It's like didn't NYXL like win 2 of these stages and then like
they won stage 2 and 3, I think. Yeah.
And they lost 4 and 1.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it felt like midway through. It felt like in the NBA, like in an April or May game, it was just like, why am I even watching this crap?
Yeah. What's the point? I mean, like we've said earlier, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like the concept of stages makes it a little more interesting. Like, like Dallas Fuel's resurgence in stage 4. It kind of made it interesting if you're a Dallas Fuel fan. Like, they can make the playoffs of a stage, even though I won't get to see them play in the overall playoffs. At least I'll get to see them like in some playoff format, getting rewarded for like being good at the current time.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's just stage 3. It felt just stale at that point. I felt like there was just too many games. There was almost too many games in the regular season. I felt like.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to keep up with all of them too, because it was like every stream was like 5 hours of gameplay, and it's like, like, do I really have to watch the 4th match of every or the 4th map of every match when it's already at 3-0? Like, what's the point?
Yeah, I don't know why they did that either.
I still think that's the worst way to do any fucking sporting venture ever. Like the idea that you watch every single game, it just doesn't make sense. Like, who would want to? Who the fuck would want to watch every game?
And I think that kind of was a big reason why the viewership got killed.
4 games of the Shanghai Dragons versus the Florida Mayhem.
What a tasty game that was.
The viewership went up for a lot of the Shanghai games just because they're like, please.
Will they win a game?
Like, it really was like that. It's like, there we go, 40-0. Like, see you later.
But dude, it's kind of hilarious that like, how is it possible that your team is that bad? For
all the Chinese talent went to go play fucking PUBG, and a lot of their play like Undead, one of their better players, ended up leaving mid-season because he was like cheating on his girl.
If I had to tell you,
he was cheating on his wife, wasn't he?
The number one reason why I would guess they didn't have the best Chinese players is because I know from people who've worked in and around the LPL that, like, even in the LPL, they're doing dodgy shit like faking birth certificates.
Yeah.
And that's why when you see a player who looks like he's 12, he probably is.
He is.
So that's why when a player comes into the LPL and they're like, now he's 16, that means like, holy shit, how young must that guy have been? Like, so as a result, like, the point is, you can fake that in China because you know what? You probably pay some official off, don't you? You can't do that if it's like the US government. You need like a visa to come work and play for the Overwatch League. And also, you think like if you're smart, you wouldn't even try and do that because then you'd just be absolutely like blacklisted from Overwatch forever by Blizzard because Blizzard's going to be the one applying for the visa for you and like having a lawyer work with you, vouching for you. So if it turns out you're lying, you're going to be in mad shit. So unfortunately, a lot of the Chinese esports industry is like that because they've just got so many kids who play, you know.
Yeah. Also,
that
what
just
I think
sounds mad, but like at the same time, it does sound believable that you'd still pay off like people.
Yeah,
and like
Well, you have to realize it's not like it's different in other countries. Like, remember, the only reason they have to be 16 in the LPL is because Riot made that rule. Like in Korean esports, there's people who are 14 in team houses.
Yeah, it's true.
That's not even looked down on. That's considered fine.
Yeah,
Wasn't Flower like in team houses like way before he was 16?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and also like all the LCK teams have their like not subs, but they're like the trainees that have been in the system for God. Like UCal was a KT trainee for like how long? Like 2 years, like
Roughly, yes.
Oh, he.
I think it's because it's partially because of the labor laws in the U.S. Because they basically won't let you work unless you're 18, and I mean a lot of other countries have a lot better or a lot more lenient on younger people working like, professionally. Like in European basketball, all the time they'll let kids that are as young as like 13 sign with like Real Madrid. They won't actually play.
All family.
The part that doesn't make sense about that is though you let fucking kids be actors. Why is that okay?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because Hollywood. That's why. They have connections.
They have tasty money.
But also what I think is ridiculous about OWL is that they've announced their new franchises, right? Atlanta and Guangzhou. But like where the fuck is like Chicago or like any other like notable sporting city in the world? Ah, yes, Atlanta.
They might have already sold rights for like a team to like have franchise rights in there. Who knows?
The rumors are
who is the person who bought the Atlanta franchise?
I think it's Cox.
It's Cox.
And they're from Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
Well, that'll be why then, because this is the real trick of the Overwatch League. This is where Blizzard is smart, is that nothing to do with esports matters. Like the people they're selling to is like they're selling to Robert Kraft. Like, do you want to get in? Yeah, of course. Right. Well, I must have the Boston franchise. We can negotiate that. It's like, remember, to him, it's not even totally illogical to him. He's thinking the reason I want the Boston franchise is I've got all the connections to all the sponsors in Boston. Like, I know how Boston people think, like how to market to them. Like, this is going to be ideal. In future, maybe there'll be crossover between that's what he's thinking. So at the moment, I would expect most companies are going to be like that. It's going to be the other way around. It's not like they sit down and go, right, what's available? What could I have? It's more like they're like, right, well, I'm from here, so we'll get this. That's why you end up with like weird ones, like obviously like fucking Florida Mayhem. Like, why would you pick that as the place?
Yeah. I mean, there are some rumors that there's more coming down the pipes. Like I think Paris is a big one that's rumored. I think Chicago has been one that's rumored. I don't know if that one is happening or not.
Meanwhile, you have two LA teams for absolutely no reason.
That's the weird part, right?
Best part about that, of course, being that obviously LA was one of the most contested spots. So not only do they then give up half of your spot to someone else, like not even just like, right, listen, I gave you LA, but he's just in San Diego. What's the problem? He's in No, he's literally in LA as well. Yeah. So even though it costs more, it's devalued. And now you can't even do that thing of like, I deny you the opportunity. Oh shit, you also own this area, right? Well, everyone, you can both do fan meetings.
Yeah, maybe they can hash it out and one team gets like Beverly Hills and the other team gets like Compton or something.
Doesn't even need to be Compton, mate. I remember when I went to LA a couple of years back. I think it was for Season 3 Worlds when it was at Staples. Yeah. And because Staples is obviously like right downtown, I thought naively, because again, like I've been to America loads of times, I thought, right, I'll just get a hotel downtown. So I'll be in walking distance, I could walk there every day. And what I soon discovered was, because everyone in LA, A, uses a car, and B, doesn't live downtown. They obviously live in like, some sort of a suburb type area and drive in. Well, the downtown area is like a fucking dystopian nightmare, like Blade Runner or something. The entire place is full of people of certain ethnic groups who, no joke, are all homeless and or crazy. Like just screaming at people walking down the street. You're literally seeing like cliches out of movies. That, the woman who has like the shopping trolley with like 17 different types of junk that she's like collecting for some reason, even though it is all like absolutely worthless junk, because she's obviously mentally ill or whatever. And so you just see all those, like you walk past another guy, he's just like screaming about the Bible and like fucking Bible verses at you. Like I was just like, what a brilliant place this is.
That sounds just really...
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
It could be.
I don't want to live there. I'll tell you a good story though.
Could be San Francisco.
When I was walking, because actually I went to the same place a few years before that, because they once had a World Cyber Games there at the LA Convention Center, which is just down the road from the Staples Center. And by the way, speaking of Overwatch League, you'll appreciate this one. So even though it was the World Cyber Games, like one of the biggest events we had in 1.6, and in theory you'd think, in 2010 esports must still be doing all right, they had, no joke, like maybe 50 viewers come. And so they did the classic American TV show thing where they went out on the street and they started paying people to come in and sit in the audience. So that at least your camera shot wouldn't look like 10 people, you know. And then when I was walking home to my hotel from there, I was walking along, right, and I had like a old school, like, I think it was like a Penguins jersey or something. And this kid walks up to me and he goes, "Okay, man, what are you doing with that shirt?" or some shit. And I go, "Oh, just a fan of the Penguins." He's like, "All right, where are you from? Russia?" Yeah, definitely am, you absolute cretin. Just walked off like, "See ya, I'm out."
Should have like put on a Russian accent and started like saying,
"Gotta bail on this conversation."
We just walk
Okay,
around.
here's one thing though, Alex, that I have to say
Yeah.
is like the whole aspect of like the patching. I might do a video on this one day because I actually don't think it's even possible to patch properly, because every single game that involves heavy patching sucks except one game in history, which is Dota 2. And the only so as far as I can tell, it works like this. It all depends how good the game itself is in terms of fundamentals, like how well it's constructed, how durable it is, how much you can change about it. So as a result, the reason that, as far as I can tell, that Dota 2 still works is because it seems like it doesn't matter what you change in Dota. Like every role is still viable. Like most heroes are still viable. Like what's great about that game is it's the ultimate example of a game where you are really just giving people a massive wide toolkit and just saying like, you know, pick out what works for you and use that, you know. And so you'll always see mad diverse playing styles. The problem is when you come to something like League of Legends is the worst example because obviously in that game, like you can absolutely break a certain role or a certain type of player is just not even viable anymore, or a certain playing style doesn't work because of something you've changed, because the game seems like very, very like fundamentally poor in terms of how it's constructed. And to me, Overwatch is like between the two, because I feel like the problem in Overwatch is if you really are amazing, you'll still be decent if they change the meta. But like the problem with Overwatch is, you don't use even all the heroes in play. Like it's a very limited meta. And so as a result, everyone is to some degree copying whatever the strong meta is. You know, you have the meta and you have one counter, and that's usually about it in each stage, you know. So the problem with that is, let's say I'm the best team and you change the meta. All right, cool. You know what? I could probably still be the third best team. But you have just literally determined the outcome of the league just by what you changed in the game. Like, it has nothing to do with how much I practice, how much like, at the end of the day, if my best player was the best on that, like the obvious example would be like people who played Tracer.
Yeah.
They were just irrelevant after that.
That's exactly what happened to NYXL.
Yep. And
Percy
and
got
Boston.
Really screwed over by that last meta change before playoffs.
Yeah.
I think at least. Like
I think everyone agrees on that one. Like if
No, but that's why I love it that these fucking cocksuckers keep telling us it's just like real sports. Yeah, all right.
Nope.
Let me know when you just took away 3-point shots before the fucking playoffs, you daft cunt.
Yeah.
And then the Golden State Warriors is like, oh shit.
Basketball version 1.1.
Like, who would watch that? Who would watch? Like, imagine how robbed you would feel as a fan if you were like, say your favorite team, okay, I'll have to go with like an old school example, was like some like AC Milan team from 20 years ago in Serie A, right? And your team, the whole thing your team's built off is you're the best defensively. Like you man mark everyone, you have all tactical schemes that shut everyone down. You win every game 1-0, and that's why you're the best team, right? Obviously in Italian leagues, you don't actually have playoffs anyway, but let's imagine it was like an Overwatch League thing. You have the league and then you have a playoffs. Imagine if your team's number one in the league, you've done so well, you've won most games, you come into the playoffs and they just make the goal a foot wider. So now even if you're the best defensively, you're just letting in more goals. And you know what? Maybe your team wasn't built around goal scoring because you had a very defensive core. So now the whole league's about, it's like fucking La Liga. It's about outscoring the opponent. It's not about defensive play. Now you would just have completely changed who wins the league. And if you were a fan, I would literally feel like, fuck this game. Why am I watching this? You're just wasting my whole time. It's like that bit in, like, okay, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, but you know that season of Game of Thrones a while back where they had that whole plot line where those sparrows, the religious zealots that took over the city, were like wrecking that fucking Loris Tyrell guy, the guy who's a gay guy. And if you remember, at the end of the season, one of the big, like, key moments was that he sort of like accepts like they've broken him, you know. He says like, yeah, you know, I've sinned, and they give him that like tattoo where they like burn it into his skin or whatever, and they do all this stuff to him, and then 1 second later they blow up the building with him and loads of other characters in, and it all meant nothing. It all meant absolutely nothing. All the moments you were invested in there, all the like journey, it meant absolutely nothing, because you know what, even if he hadn't done that, he would have been blown up anyway in a bomb. That's what it would. That's what fucking MOBA patch changes feel like.
Yeah,
that really does sound like pretty accurate.
Hey, Riot. Hey, we're changing the bot lane meta.
Oh.
We want it so the AD carries scale later, but have a terrible early game. Oh wait, this isn't what we wanted.
Mages can be AD carries now. Congratulations, you have figured out a new meta.
Because what I actually learned a long time ago about these sorts of games when they patch balance is you only keep getting caught in these logical loops of like, I don't understand what they were trying to do if you listen to what they say in their PR. Because in their press releases, they lie to you all the time. What they actually do, okay, ignore the press release and just imagine they only change the game to make it fresh for noobs. If you think about it that way, everything they're doing makes sense. That's why every balance change is drastic. Every hero change is a mad nerf or a mad buff. They never, because here's the thing, if you actually wanted to change for competitive and you wanted to make something better, like, you know, this one roll's a little bit too strong, this one hero's a little bit too strong, what you would do is you would do lots of incredibly small incremental balance changes. Like you would take down the niddly damage 5 and then you'd see what that does. You'd take it down 2 more to see, oh, it's gone a bit too far, up 1. They never do that. What they'll always do is they'll like
20.
take it down 20 or they'll put up something else that's the counter by 30 and then give it an extra ability, you know, like if you look at it competitively, it makes no sense. But if you look at it as, and by the way, this is quite a clever marketing tool. Think of all the people who complain like, oh, I'm bored of CS. It's because it's the same game. Like, I'm not bored of it, but I get why they are. If they're just a casual pleb, maybe they don't want to play the same game for fun for 10 years, you know. So if instead you keep coming back to League and it's like, oh, wow, all these new champions are viable. Oh, wow, new style of play. Like, oh, vision works differently now. To a pleb, that's probably fun, actually. And also, I'll tell you a little principle that has always worked in esports. And this is why it's only hardcore fans who complain about this shit. So when I first used to go to LAN parties, back when I had really bad internet, like the early 2000s, when you would go to them, the main reason you went is because everyone had bad internet. So if you went, you were playing on LAN with like 6 ping, and it was awesome. And when you would go there, right, first of all, the games you would play would be like Quake, obviously, you know, Counter-Strike. Well, one of the main reasons I ever even played Counter-Strike when the first beta came out is because what I found was, because you'd get people who came to the LAN party who themselves were like casuals, like even if they played online, you know, they played like the odd game on a 300 ping 56k modem, so they weren't really like hardcore players. What would happen is, well, on 6 ping, they're going to get banged out even more, aren't they? They're going to have no chance. So what would happen was, after you've played Quake for 3 or 4 hours, that one of them would always pipe up and be like, can we play a different game now? One that you're not good at? And so, as a result, we would play Counter-Strike, Day of Defeat, Natural Selection. And by the way, don't worry, give me half an hour in any of these games, I'd be fucking banging on them like a drum. But even so, they were right for the first half an hour, you know, I don't know all the hiding spots. Like, I remember the best example ever was one of them was a right little fucking rat, because he was like, let's play a game that none of us have played. And it turned out he secretly had been playing like Medal of Honor. You remember Medal of Honor? It was like Day of Defeat, basically. And in this game, it was one of those ones where, because you're in like a, you know, like a blown up like fucking German city or something, and that's where you're going around because it's World War II setting. Like, there's obviously a million hiding spots, and it was one of those games like you had in the old days where there's no death cam. If you die, you just die. So if some little cunt had like the best sniping spot ever,
upside a tower,
you just have no idea where he is, and you're just getting shot by him over and over again. And he just knew all those spots. Like, what a little rat, eh? So anyway, you see the point is, like, I actually think that plebs like it when you reset the game, because they think, oh, this is going to reset the skill level. And remember, every pleb, because they all have mad Dunning-Kruger effect, they all secretly think, oh, the only reason I'm not the best is because you all started before me. But if we were to restart the playing field now, I could have a chance to be the best. That's why people love, you notice, it's always like the shit esports journalists who instantly go to the next big game and are like, I'm all about Overwatch, I'm all about fighting games. It's because they didn't make it in the other game, and they think the same thing, like, oh, but if I start in a new game, then there wouldn't be all this politics and stuff, and I'll become number one then. It's like, they never do, of course, but...
The only thing you
plus,
can actually like do to counter that is pretty simple. Work on it every day. Have a set schedule on which you practice certain things mechanically, or who knows, like rocket jumping if it's like in Quake, or movement, anything, right?
It's literally
Practice
like
all these things for an effective period of extended time. And guess what? You will improve. If you don't, guess what? You're still going to
That's why I'm never
lag behind everybody that actually does these
but
things.
I want to be good now.
I've never understood as a result why so many people, I guess it's just the way games are made nowadays, but why so many people have that like short-term mentality of like they have to enjoy it now. Because that's actually one of the reasons I got into esports. Is like when I first started playing Quake, right, first of all, the internet was terrible, so you never were going to be the best anyway. But even worse, when I would even go to the LAN parties, because I actually had poor internet, I didn't even play Quake much online. I used to just watch the demos, Whereas these guys were playing like every night, So they were way better than me. And most famously, I remember when Quake 2 came out and they introduced the railgun, which wasn't in Quake 1. And because that's an entire point-and-click hit-scan weapon, it meant that like it was a totally new way of aiming. And so what happened was all these guys who were practicing it tons were just wrecking me. Like I couldn't even use that weapon because obviously I don't have like mad hand-eye coordination. Mm-hmm. But by continuing to play, eventually, I don't even know how it happened, just one of those things that you just keep practicing. Gradually, you get used to it. Eventually, I could wreck all these people with the rail. And obviously, at that point in time, now it's way more satisfying because now I've like, overcome all those people. And now I've actually learned a skill set I didn't even know I could have.
Yeah, it's like it's the old 10,000 hours thing. Like the more time you put into something, the more you are going to improve. In order to master something, it takes 10,000 hours. People are like, no, I want to be good now. Like, I should be able to pick up the game and be good at it. It's like, well, like, have you ever played a sport in your life? No, Lionel Messi didn't become Lionel Messi because he decided on the first day, like, isn't there a shortcut for this? Like,
no,
he was sitting there in his backyard, juggling for hours and hours on end. But no, I have to, in the whole instant gratification.
It's like, do you think Double Lift like instantly was the best AD carry like in NALCS? No, he fucking played hour upon hour upon hour upon hour and worked on his craft
to the point where his parents disowned him because he wanted this so bad.
And the community helped him out, because guess what? They liked enjoying a player who fucking smacked the shit out of everyone.
I might actually make a video on this topic because one of the things that's one of my theories as to why, like, for example, Fortnite and PUBG are so popular is because they actually embrace noob culture. So, for example, even if you're the best player in the world in Fortnite and I'm the worst player in the world, if we both drop in and I land next to a gun, well, then I kill you. That's it.
So random.
How are you going to kill me? You don't have a gun.
That's why I prefer Quake.
That's not esports.
Just hit him with the pickaxe 10 times. It takes 10 hits to kill someone.
That's why I prefer Quake, because you drop in on a map, like you both spawn on a piece of the map, and the lay of the land, like the map, like if you actually practiced it, and it's like I need to go to this pickup item or I go for this weapon like close by. It's like where the weapon's gonna be. Everybody has a chance to kill each other then.
Don't you find that crazy as well? Right, so one thing people used to complain about quite a lot when Warcraft 3 was a big game is that Warcraft 3 had random items that would be dropped. And so as a result, if you were like leading in the game and you were playing a specific like hero and a specific race, if you got a certain item, you just win the game basically. Yeah. Like it's over. And I'm talking about in esports, like this is happening. Mm-hmm. So as a result, it was ruining some of the games. And this is something that existed in the game. Well, it's the same in Fortnite, etc. No one knows where the guns are. They're all in a different spot. So again, if I'm the best player in the world, like imagine the whole storyline of a sport, right? I've trained my whole life for this. Like, when my dad died 10 years ago, I told him I'd become the world champion, Pops, I'm doing this for you. I'm going into the world championship now. It's the finals day. I drop it. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There's no gun.
There's no gun there where I was. Sorry, Dad. See you. Peace. Fuck everyone, I guess. It's not like in the NFL. It's like, there's just no ball for you for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah. At least in like Dota, for example, there is a little bit of RNG with the runes spawning, but that can at least be mitigated.
That can be mitigated, right?
Yeah. And the runes aren't like insanely powerful. So, but yeah, it can be mitigated. You can get vision on them and all that shit.
Mm-hmm. Anyone? Any specific topics?
No, I didn't really have anything in mind.
Because I only had this one in mind.
Let's think. Let's rack our brains.
Something with LCS, maybe?
Can talk about I don't know, maybe the weird shit that's been going on with FACEIT and the major.
Ah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
How
That
the
then.
like,
So first of all, which weird shit? Because there's a lot being going on.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
weird shit happening.
Yeah.
That's why I was very general. I mean, there's the weird rule change with the player eligibility and the minor.
that does seem like they
That was
like
weird.
that one kind of seems like coming out of left field and like done for like one or two specific teams. And without trying to inform anybody, they just like wanted to push that through. And it's like, oh, we just kind of forgot telling you guys. And now they kind of had to address it because Richard like pulled out the monkey from the machine. You know?
Well, there's the Rugga tweet. That was the
Yeah,
was the
and
thing
like
that really
I
set
think
shit
like
off.
they even like tried to sue him for defamation or something, right?
They just said something like that.
Yeah.
They didn't actually do it, but
Ah,
I think that's
they were very rude to him.
like they were
That's
implying
correct.
it, right?
yeah. I mean,
It's
I
like-
think that's probably just like
Posturing,
peacocking.
yeah.
I wouldn't actually like try and do that. Like, who knows?
To a player who plays for your
Yeah.
league.
I do kind of like the new like the format that they're gonna try, but it's for another part of the
So
discussion.
what do you think then? What do you think of this FACEIT thing?
Who, me?
Anyone?
I think it's a shit show, like how it's handled. Like they had like not even the boss of FACEIT come out and like address this. They had some like guy, just like a random guy, like do it. Like
Oh no, the best part is, dude, like what they would do is the boss of FACEIT was the one talking shit to me and Richard directly constantly on Twitter. But then anytime it came to actually having to make like a proper statement, then it would just be like a news post, a guy on Reddit, a guy who's not the main boss. Like, it's weird how that works. I've always thought it's quite funny, right? That in a world where we have all these instant means of communication, people who are sort of like, Take notation, secretary. I'm gonna have to send this telegram. Like, are you fucking kidding me? A minute ago, you were just tweeting right at me. What happened to your Twitter fingers, homie? What happened to them?
they're
know?
chopped off.
It's weird how that works, isn't it?
Is this the Yakuza where you have 4 fingers after a crime?
Yeah. I can't believe that, we're trying to be, professional, put on, a big event. And then meanwhile, who are you fucking bastard, talking all this mad shit on Twitter. And then it's like, oh, excuse me, my cat ran over my keyboard. Like,
I've also just never understood. To this day, it will never make sense to me. Is you have to realize this is what's crazy. Most of the people who talk shit to me and Richard are people who, because of their place in the industry, they don't actually talk shit to people usually. No one's ever coming at them. No one is ever bringing up some fucked up shit they've done. And so as a result, they're so fucking clueless that they don't actually, it's like if there were a kid that's never been to school before and you sent some homeschooled kid in and then he just started like trying to start fights with like the toughest kid in the school, you'd just be going like, are you out of your mind? Like, you don't even know how to fight. That's what they're like, because these people never just come to us and say like politely like, oh, excuse me, where did you get that information? All they always do is come at us super hard, even though by definition our jobs are unveil shady shit, make everyone aware of fucked up stuff, show when people are being arseholes. It's like you're going out of you. It's almost like they have some sort of mad young, like Freudian fucking death wish, because why else did they just come at us like that?
To also not understand how journalism works and that you have to actually protect your sources. It's like, you're not going to tell them where you got all that info from. It's like, that would be like...
No, but the other part where it doesn't work, right, is let's imagine in one case, like it's almost never happened, but let's imagine they were actually in the right and we were totally wrong and they had it all right and they came at us super hard, right? Well, now we're, just for our own personal pride, going to be incentivized to cover every story that they do. And if they do anything fucked up, we're going to be incentivized to make it an even bigger deal, right? Like, I'm not saying that like some sort of mad protection racket, like if you don't keep quiet, I'll do this. But like, that's just the way it works. That's just the way the world works. Like, if you piss someone off, then when they get a chance to fuck you over, they are going to do it. It's like there's a great like sort of piece of wisdom that I remember seeing in like a Jordan Peterson interview where he said something along the lines of like, the reason why you don't want to have arguments with your significant other is because you can't win. Like, let's say you win this argument. You think when you do something wrong next, they're not just going to go balls deep in your arse. Like they're going to literally, doesn't matter that you were right now and maybe you were even right in the argument. They are going to, for the sake of getting this done, go mental on you. They're going to go fucking nuts. Likewise, like, because you have to have a relationship with people, which is the analogy here. In this scenario, if you're a tournament organizer, whether or not you agree right now with what Richard says, you want to have a good relationship with him in the future. You want him to be on your side. You want him to hear you out when things have gone wrong. So why would you ever come in an aggressive manner? Like, it's half these people, I told you, it's just naivety. They just don't know how the world works,
Yeah.
Sounds like a story I've heard before, like players going in on Richard and then afterwards coming to him like, please help me with this contract. It's like, should he really help you now? Like,
Oh,
Don't burn any bridges that you can't afford to not burn.
It's like sometimes I really don't get like certain their minds, but yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it is kind of funny how fast the community seemed to turn on FACEIT with this whole situation.
First they all praised them, and now like, oh, like if ESL like changed like their rule, like ESL changed like their rulings or like a deal, like they get shit all the fucking time. Meanwhile, FACEIT does it 3 months later. No one bats a fucking eye.
Oh no, here's all they have to do. If you're ESL and you're listening to this, I'll give you your advice now. Here's how you become the most popular tournament organizer in the industry. And you're going to think this is confusing because I'm about to tell you things that have nothing to do with organizing tournaments. So step one, set up some kind of a really good PUG system that also has a pro component where they can win money, like FPL. Set that up. That's already going to make you very popular. Secondly, this is going to seem so abstract, but it's going to be great. Get Joe Miller and Red Eye to become a casting duo who only cast your events. Two of the most popular Counter-Strike commentators in the history of the game. Now, those two reasons are the main reason why FACEIT could do no wrong until recently. Because of FPL and FACEIT PUG system, and because they have James Bardolph and DDK. That's it. So apparently they were allowed to fuck up anything in tournaments. They were allowed to, literally until 2018, to this day, have some of the wackest tournament formats in the entire scene. They were allowed to have like, leagues that let fucking Simple just stand in for every team and smash everyone. Like they're allowed to do everything that if you were ESL, you would get raked over the coals for. But because they're FACEIT and they're not ESL, the circle jerk never goes against them.
They've got those funny ads with Bardolph.
Yeah, how could you ever go against funny ads with Bardolph, dude? Heaven forbid.
Well, I doubt ESL would ever want Bardolph ever again, because didn't they get really pissed off about that one time that when Simple did the like dropping op shot or whatever, and he said,
"Oh, by the way, I absolutely think that what Bardolph did in that major means that if I was ESL, I'd never hire him again. He did two things. One, he did that thing. This was ESL Cologne, the major.
Yeah.
One, he shouted, "What up, bitches!" into a massive, like on stream, into a massive arena.
Yeah.
And at the Valve World Championship. Like, that's just, first of all, that's just unacceptable. Like, I don't know if people notice this, but I almost never swear when I'm on desks. I think I might have sweared 3 times ever, and those were all at events like Starladder, where basically they don't mind, and everyone else is doing it. And so, like, you would never see me do it at a major, never see me do it at, like, a really important match. So, first of all, the idea he did that, I think that is actually outrageous. Like, I'm a fairly generally I'm in favor of like free speech type things, but that's just so unnecessary, And then secondly, yeah, you're absolutely right, Alex. Like I actually find that really fucked up. That his whole thing was like, wow, an amazing moment's just happened. Let me for no reason plug my company's service. What a fucked up thing to do. Like, I don't care if that's an unpopular thing to say. I think that's fucked.
Yeah.
That would be like if I was on a broadcast, right, where they were sponsored. Remember, I used to be sponsored by esports pools, right? Imagine it's sponsored by e-gaming bets. And I'm like, and I come on the desk like, wow, what an insane turnaround. Like when I won that bet on esports pools, that would make me an asshole, by the way. Yeah. And in that scenario, I probably should never be hired again. Because if there's one thing the tournament organizer has to be able to trust for a commentator, it's that they can trust you to actually like play by the rules, to do what they want, to help with their sponsor aspects and stuff. So to other people who don't know the industry, those might seem like minor things, but they're not really. Like, those are like egregious breaking of the rules. Like, I guarantee you there was no universe in which like, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. There's no universe in which he thought that he was allowed to say, like, bitches live on air. He just did it because he knew no one was going to run over, just yank him off the fucking mic. And in fact, off the top of my head, he might have even done it. I think because it was like the semi-finals, I think he even did it when it was like his last match in like the dirtiest fashion ever, where, like, you know, they can't kick you out now because it's the last match in it. So fuck that. Fuck everything about that. And I don't care if someone's popular. If they do bullshit, I'll still call them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing like when you guys went with that Sadikist thing, right? You also like said it was like unreasonable that he said certain things, like you shouldn't say them. It's like, but you like went also in the defensive way about it, right?
Yeah, but also you have to understand, like, Badolf has never apologized for any of this. He doesn't even think he did anything wrong. He thinks it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, what I did was perfectly reasonable.
So it's up to him if he wants to do that, but like that's an example of where if the company then decides they don't want to hire you, I don't think it's unreasonable.
Still a
No,
scumbag.
certainly, because it's like Valve's big event. Like, you know,
And also, what people don't seem to understand about the industry is this. There's only one company that's blocking people from working for them, and that's FACEIT. Like, when's the last time you saw Anders and Semler at a FACEIT event?
That's true.
When did you last see, like basically all you ever see is you see Badolf and DDK because they work for FACEIT, and then you see Henry and Sadikist, right?
I think 2015.
I would go ahead and bet they didn't work at those events, but I'd have to check. Because here's the thing.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't remember.
No, like, here's the thing. Remember, those weren't FACEIT events. Those were DreamHack, and FACEIT ran the event through DreamHack.
Yeah.
And even then, FACEIT Stage 1, I'm pretty certain Anders and Semler weren't there. The one that was in the London office. But the ones that were at like DreamHack Valencia and DreamHack Winter, those ones, as far as I know, might have had them at. But in all the ECSs, it's their own people only. True. Now, it's weird, again, remember the hypocrisy. So if ESL runs an event, it's mandated by the community. They must hire all the big casters. People even say in the threads, where's Badolf and DDK? Now, when ECS runs their tournament, I don't see any threads about where's Anders. Like, there's none.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
So, like, this is just a good example of where it's not always the people that are, like, painted as the biggest villain who actually are the ones doing the, like, mildly shady shit, you know. Anyway, is there a new topic?
Yanko to coach MIBR.
I was about to say that, speaking of hirings.
By the way, you do know, like, today proved it. Like, I've known this for a while, but the thing about Fallen is the reason why that whole meme came around, like Fallen Two-Faced, got Gabriel Two-Faced Toledo or whatever, is because for the first like year of Counter-Strike in CSGO, Fallen never put a foot wrong publicly. He had the most perfect PR of probably any player ever, because not only was he active on social media, speaking in English, but he was always like praising his opponents, saying how great they did, like, you know, being very polite to his own teammates. He just seemed like a perfect ambassador. But then you had the whole Luminosity to SK thing, the cracks started to appear, right? And obviously since then, yeah, we've had a few funny quotes that have become epic memes, you know, like, you know, only pussies try to win or whatever, that sort of stupid shit. But generally, he clearly does know how the political game works. So when he said in this interview today that they were thinking about who they could hire as a coach, right? But they didn't want to hire someone who's just Brazilian because obviously two of the players speak English. So it had to be someone with good English. So he says, like, Zeus wasn't an option because he was in Team Liquid. And then he says, we thought about Peacemaker because he's a really good guy or something, but then we decided not to. And then they went with Yanko. Now, when he says that, I do not for 1 second believe he actually considered hiring Peacemaker.
Is this on the Cybersports one?
I think so. Mm-hmm. I believe if I had to bet, I think all he did there was he just thought, well, you know, I can't get Zeus. I got Yanko. Spice the story up a bit. And you know what? Just throw Peacemaker a bone, make it sound like I was considering hiring him. So maybe some other team will hire him. And so he just did that. Because remember, this is the guy where I've mentioned this many times before. Everyone forgets this. Everyone talks about Fallen being like a genius. When they used Fox as a stand-in for ECS Season 2 and the first E-League major, the Atlanta one, after that, there was an interview a few months later, I'd have to go and check the exact dates, where Fallen implied that he actually asked Fox to join as the full-time fifth player, and Fox said no. Now again, first point, there is no way Fox said no to that. Second point, there is no way you offered him that. Third point, if you did offer him that, my God, I wish he'd have joined and stayed in your team for 10 years. You know,
That does
fuck
sound-
everything.
Yeah,
about
he's
that.
he's the greatest player ever, don't we?
But the whole
In
point is,
Portugal, maybe, but not
it was the
anywhere
same
else.
thing again. That's the whole point. All he was doing there was like, obviously, I'm not going to sign this guy, but since I'm not going to sign him, what do I lose by saying he's a good guy and I would have liked to have signed him, but he turned me down? It makes him sound like the hot property, doesn't it? So now when some other team might get him, oh yeah, Fox is a great guy. It's like, here's the thing: it's dishonest. Like you're absolutely lying, but I guess in a way it's a sort of a white lie, isn't it?
See, I can see
One man's
why he would
loss
do that.
is another man's bone, you know?
Yeah, he's trying to intentionally sabotage every other team by trying to get them to sign shitty contracts.
Can you blame him? So it's a way of winning.
Well, it's like that joke I had, wasn't it? Where he, like, obviously Fallen's done the most ruthless cuts ever, but then he would always be telling all the other fuckers in like Nip and Virtus Pro, like, I respect you guys so much the way you keep the same lineup together. Anyway, keep the same lineup together. Keep losing to me.
Keep the same lineup so we
Tell you
can
what,
keep winning.
I wish I could bloody keep the same players. What's that? Someone had a bad git, cut him now. Get another person in and win. Like, I think it's baller. That's actually funny.
But-
It's like, keep the same lineup so we can keep wrecking you with an even better one.
Right, so here's the question then. Do you think this will be a good move?
I do. Like Yanko's analysis is like so in depth and like so expansive. His knowledge of CS, like it has to work.
Yeah,
If it doesn't work, then someone's actually not listening to him.
That is often the case with coaches. by the
Yeah,
way.
that's the question: is he a good enough personality manager that he can get them?
I think he's headstrong enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think he probably
Like who on that team has more knowledge than Yanko? Maybe Fallen.
The
Who
question
else?
is not whether or not they do; it's whether or not they think they have more.
Yeah.
And Fallen probably thinks he has more. Well, maybe.
Probably Fallen, but like who else?
Yeah, like I honestly like you have to wonder
Cole.
like
Nah. I'd say no to that
But
one.
he-
No, but the
would've
problem
said-
is this. It's not about, like, in that case, for Cold Zero, I don't think you would even frame it as knowledge. The problem for Cold Zero is, because he's
Skill,
so
maybe.
good, even when the team's losing, he actually, I get the sense, does think that, like, well, I'm doing my job, so, like, if people just play around me correctly, then we'll win. So it's like,
Yeah.
even though he's actually correct, by the way, on some base level, that can be a very dangerous mentality, because then it means that you're going to exert too much, like, influence over how other people play the game, and that might make them worse players. You know?
I think Fallen even said like Stewie and Tarek can do whatever they want in this team, right? So that would suggest like they're gonna try and play around Stewie and Fallen, Stewie and Tarek, right?
I think we've
Instead of-
established we can't believe anything Fallen says.
no.
I'm gonna leave that in the middle.
Yeah.
It's just like
I don't know. I think it could work. Like it really just depends on how well how the dynamic works personality wise. I think that's like the key thing. I think.
I mean, I like Yanko a lot, and I do believe he's headstrong, but I just don't know if he's like the charismatic, guy that will get. Like, I don't think he's gonna get.
Have you seen
everyone
him
to,
cheer for Nico? I mean,
Yes, but I don't think he's gonna get everyone on MIBR to buy in. The thing about like a
then
very
they'll get
heavy.
kicked.
The thing about a heavy analytical style where you break down everything is that the players also have to buy in to the fact that what you're saying is correct, and that if they implement your changes, they will get better. Like if you don't have everyone buying in, a very heavy top-down style of coaching just will not work.
I truly believe like if they really don't buy into his like style, they'll get kicked instead of him.
Maybe. I don't know.
Probably not.
Problem is, he doesn't have any
depends who it
tenure
is.
as a coach.
Yeah, he doesn't.
So,
Like if he is like Zeus, like, and he gets actual reign of that team, that's gonna be a dangerous team, my man.
Yeah. If he gets control of him, I think it'll be good. Like
If like,
That's a big if.
you don't need.
I don't think that's a big if. Like, let's
not a
see
huge
who
if.
MIBR has hired these last couple of times. Like, Lurpus, not a moron by any stretch of the imagination. That guy is actually like, he's got his brain right.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's gonna fuck that team. Like, I think he's
Yeah.
gonna make it better.
yeah,
I don't
the
think-
biggest problem to me is like I think that lineup just doesn't make any sense at all. It's like
Yeah.
like
Currently,
this is-
yeah.
That's a lineup that would be created by all the people who tell me all day long that there's no such thing as support players, there's no such thing as like, they're just bad players that you're making excuses for. Like, people actually believe this shit. Like, people really think that like what you should do tomorrow in NRG is like kick Fogley out and put like fucking, I don't even know, Automatic in the team instead of something, and that would make them like instantly better. It's like there's a reason why in history the teams that win all the fucking majors nearly always have someone who plays this kind of style or role.
Oh.
It's not a coincidence, Yeah.
Like, go look when Mouse Sports was looking at their best. Like, Stiko, guess what? That guy was off the fucking chain with, like, pop flashes, the way he covered his teammate, the way he went about things. Like, that guy's a support player through and through.
And now he's stuck in hell.
Sadly.
Because the funny thing is,
better. Like,
there've been so many NBA teams that have done this where, like, I mean, just look at the ones they had the last few seasons, like the fucking
Golden State
Oklahoma
Warriors.
Thunder one.
No, the Thunder one. Yeah, that's the big one.
Like, if
get all the stars.
Remember, if you have one of these players on a normal team, you'll be a playoff team, right? So how can having three of them make you only like a team that could be a playoff team? That doesn't make sense. Like, logically, it shouldn't. Well, obviously the reason why is pretty obvious, isn't it? They have to be the star player. They can't play as like the third they can't stand there and watch another guy dribble the ball and take a shot. Like, they're not in the game when that happens.
It's only the Golden State Warriors pull that off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even then, like, all their star players really get their
Well, if you
spots.
notice, it's because that's because they play such a fast tempo that everyone gets 20 shots.
Yeah.
Like, they couldn't be like a half court team and do that.
Well, also Clay all the time talks about how he's happy with his role, even though he literally just stands there and I mean, not literally, but he basically just gets spot up shots and plays hard defense.
Well, he's happy now.
He's happy with that.
Let's see if they're not winning and they don't even make it deep in the playoffs. And he realizes, wait a minute. So if I went to another team, I could still be really competitive, but get paid a max contract.
I was going to say, like, let's see how long that lasts.
Well, I mean, with how much talent they have, they'll probably be pretty good for a while.
I mean, they have like the starting six for the.
No, because that's what you've missed, Alex. Remember, the reason why the Golden State Warriors is so stacked is because they had all the rookie contracts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So they're already, like, I don't know what they're over the cap. They must be way over the cap already, right? With the luxury tax.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
They're
They have
real
to,
close.
like,
I know Clay intentionally took less money so that they could keep the team together.
So then that's the point, is in, like, unless you keep winning every year, eventually there will come a point where you just cannot afford all these players. It happens in every team. There was actually like a Penguins team a few years back that was the same. Where they had to choose between like two of their third best players, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it happened to the Thunder already. When after the finals in 2012, they had to get rid of Harden because they thought they had to.
Like, people don't realize that's what's actually fucking whack about the NBA, is that the NBA is designed on both ends to make sure teams that win can't keep winning and teams that lose don't keep losing. That's why I'm not even joking when I facetiously call it like a socialist enterprise. You're literally redistributing the fucking like quality within the league.
Isn't there like a guy who specifically made his team the shittest team in the NBA for like an extended period of time so he could get all these like sick youngsters on his team?
Hinkie. Rest in peace. Rest in peace.
Which is also why
when everyone screwed over.
When everyone says all that dumb
and
shit.
And now they're doing good.
Like the Boston Celtics won 10 championships. Yeah, none of this shit existed back then, mate. Like, what are you talking about? They could keep the same squad forever, you moron.
Free agency didn't even.
And also remember, there was so little money. No one's going to go and uproot and move to another town and go to that place just to be in another squad, is he? He's just going to stay on the team he's on now. It doesn't even make sense to compare eras like that. It just makes no sense. There's no context.
Yeah. That does make sense. Like, if it's a different era and the context isn't there, hard to compare anything, really.
Yep.
Good grief.
Anybody have any ideas on Blade as a coach for Gambit?
I literally know nothing about the guy, so
that'll probably only be a positive.
Yeah, I feel like you can only get better, really.
Because, like, remember when this guy was actually the first-time coach, like, Simple was still in that team. I believe it was for Hellraisers?
Yeah, I think so.
they made top 8, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a while.
I believe they made top 8 that time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
Like-
it'll be good, especially at the events where.
And that team was nowhere near top 8 at the time. So
Yeah, I think it'll be really good for the events that he can actually talk on the mic with them, and basically not the majors.
Yeah.
I do hope like we get some consistency in how coaches get to talk. Like if it's like 12 seconds in the freeze time, or like whenever everybody's dead, like you can just talk.
Yeah,
Get some consistency in there, because like certain tournaments have it like that you can talk as a coach, and some like just don't allow it.
A unified rule set for coaches. Who would have thought that such a thing would be so good? Yet it does not exist.
Yeah, it's all Valve's fault, isn't it? Because remember, before there was a unified rule set across every tournament generally, but then because Valve changed it for theirs, most people tried to change to the Valve one, but then not everyone does. And all the time, by the way, the whole time, players behind the scenes don't want it changed, don't want things done like that. So
I don't even really understand why Valve would do that. Like, what's
what's great
thought
is
it was too
Because
overpowering.
fuck you, that's why.
remember, they also gave a socialist reason. You, as a successful business, should not be allowed to hire a really good coach who could help you, because not every team in the world could afford a good coach. That was what they said.
Yeah, that was the reasoning at the time. Also, I believe one of the parts of the reasonings at the time was that just like you have a 6th guy in the server for watching for you. It's like certain teams don't have that luxury. So,
because here's the thing a lot of people miss out on with that context, is that supposedly what actually spurred Valve to make their ruling, it's so fucked up, because it just shows how, if you think Valve are some like benevolent dictators who were just good guys, supposedly what happened was, because every single team almost had a coach who could talk like this, and it was a big deal, as Jerkies is saying here, they wanted to have another PC so they could spectate live rather than having to walk around and talk.
Yeah.
So what happened was a bunch of people, including coaches, contacted Valve and said, could you give us, like, could you make it so that like majors, for example, have to give a 6th PC so that coaches can look in the game? And then I believe they just came back like, coaching change. We have removed coaches from it. It was something fucked up like that.
yeah. Indeed.
We have removed coaches from the rule set.
I was talking to I'm not going to tell you who it was, but I was talking to a certain person who did actually like ask them for a 6th PC, and he got a really nice reply for that one.
Nice. I'm sure they were.
One of these days, and that's what, to be fair, here's an example, FACEIT. Because Valve's never fucked with me, I've never come out with some of the Valve stories. Because I've got one, and I won't tell you the details, so as a result, it won't like reveal anything now. But once upon a time, at some time in history that you'll never know, there was a meta change within the game that some players didn't like. So again, I've kept it vague enough here. And one of these players, who was a pro player, contacted Valve, and he sent them a very polite message explaining what he thought were the problems and how he thought it could be fixed and why he thought it was, important for the competitive integrity to change it. He never got a reply, but the Valve devs at the time just removed him from their Steam friends.
What?
I think I know who this one is.
Did he send a message like via Steam or just email?
No, they just removed him off. He wasn't on their Steam friends anymore.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand, this is why you can't listen to what people say in press releases. Remember, you hire fuckers to make up lies to sound good in press releases. You don't say what you actually think, otherwise you wouldn't have a guy saying, no, don't say that. Because it's like, well, that's what I actually think, isn't it? Here's what game developers actually think. Game developers, because the fucking morons in the 20th century, like Disney, who went hard on fucking IP rights, made it so that IP rights are so out of control that a guy who made a video game owns every league and sport indirectly. That happened because of that, and has full control, and could come in like they did to Brood War in Korea and say, shut it all down now, you can't play this game anymore, it's my game. Even though everything about why that was a big game had nothing to do with the game Brood One, had everything to do with how they'd built an industry up, built storylines, OGN was amazing at production. But no, they were able to come in and shut it all down overnight. And so because of that, as you will find often in life, sadly, most people confuse legality with morality. Like, they think if something is allowed, then it's also acceptable. So what happens is game developers' default mentality is, I made this game. It's my game. You should be grateful that you can play in my game. I made this game that you're playing in. So whatever happens, you better be really nice to me at all times. You better do whatever I say. And if I tell you to do something, you better fucking do it. Now, the difference is it only comes out in an extreme public way when it is the riots and the Overwatches of the world, Blizzard. But all the other game devs think the same shit, don't worry. Just on a lower level, you know.
Oh, of course.
And luckily, at least at Valve, there aren't like tons of head guys. So it's not like they're the ones fucking with everyone, you know.
I made this game, smiley face.
No.
Because again, they are so naive. They really think that, like, you know, them just making a shit version of Counter-Strike is why it's such a popular game all around the world. You know, it wasn't anything to do with all the tournament organizers, all the analysts and the casters and people doing hundreds of pieces of content, shoulder content that keep people interested. No, it was none of these things. It was just the fact that they have cases that drop in the game and a purple skin. That's the reason everyone's playing still.
And those skins weren't even made by Valve, mostly.
Because the sad thing is, because Valve didn't follow esports in Counter-Strike 1.6, I think they genuinely believe that Counter-Strike 1.6 was such a classic, and that's why people were playing it for 10 years. Whereas I actually think the esports side kept it going for a long time. Because it meant that, first of all, you could watch the game even though you didn't play it anymore because you'd played it enough. And then, even if you didn't play it now, you can come back and playing it later and you'll be reminded to by watching it, you know?
It's like niche enough. It's like, if you played Quake 2, like, you probably would like play Quake 3 and Quake 4. And ultimately, you would go on to Quake Live, right? Like, as Duncan said, you probably like, if they didn't watch the 1.6 scene and the CS scene in general, in 2007, we really got screwed over. So the fact that like 1.6 still existed in like 2010 kind of shows longevity of that game and how good it actually was. It's not just like ultra niche. Like the esports side did keep things running.
The sad thing
Even
is,
though CTS fucked us over massively.
There are so many teams that would be better if they had a coach talking now. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that in the era after the coaching rule change, almost every top team's just running fucking freeform strats with like mad aimers.
It's true.
Is that a coincidence, is it?
Yeah.
That is like...
What are you talking about, Duncan? That's just the way the meta shifted and the style of play changed over time. What do you mean that coaches have good tactical...
Oh, don't forget, G-Man. Remember that you can't have a low fragging in-game leader anymore. Everyone has to frag, even though God B still plays, and he is one of the worst individual players you will ever see in Counter-Strike.
And as we saw in like...
Just made the final of a massive tournament.
Jokes incoming.
As we saw in ESL Cologne, tactics get you somewhere if you run them properly. Because, like, I think Gabi and Existence are, like, the type of leaders who drill actual things into your players and run strats, like, as long as you can.
Yeah. I mean, there can still be innovation in tactics anyway. I mean, there's all the nade stuff with Astralis earlier this year. I mean, that was awesome to watch.
That's sick to watch, right? Like if they figure out a nade again.
I've never understood people who imply that it'll ever run out. It's like saying, oh, because we haven't invented any new notes, there's no new music possible. What the fuck does that even mean? You know? Right, let's do one more topic, because I'm pretty sick, so I've got to go at some point.
Okay.
One more topic. Let's pick one. What do you think?
Let's see.
I am out of topics, so it's up to you guys.
Reddit. No, I'm kidding.
Please.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to think of something that happened. Oh, I guess, I mean, this isn't exactly an esports topic, but like the idea that you have to be mechanically skilled at a game in order to be able to commentate on it.
That would be ridiculous. Why would you like have to be mechanically skilled to be able to commentate into a game?
Duncan has famously said
who would ever make that insinuation?
Yeah. Like Duncan has famously said before, pro players are just plebs who can move their fingers well. So if you actually have a brain and decide to think with the upper half of your head and not, the rest of your body, you can easily analyze a game. That is the dumbest shit. Because Bill Burr has never played professional football, he is incapable of having an extremely successful talk show where he actually breaks down in-depth shit about football, despite the fact that he clearly has never played professional football in his life. It literally just shows
it always comes from pros, by the way.
Yep.
Because first of all, that's the way they, even to this day, all judge each other. I can tell you right now, the reason why the Mouse Sports players wanted Stico out, he was the worst member of the team. It was nothing to do with his role or what they thought they needed in the team. They're all really skilled. They don't think he's as skilled. Therefore, in their brain, the simple, quick maths is add another skilled player will be even better. That's really what goes on in these teams. So the maddest thing is, not only do pros think that way, but if you knew the number of pros I've met who think that if they became a commentator, they'd be the number one commentator overnight, it's fucking hilarious. They don't understand any of the technical skills or the showmanship or any of these aspects that exist. They have no fucking clue. That's why, if you notice, when a whole bunch of them come on the desk, they're pedestrian as fuck. They've got nothing interesting to say.
Isn't this also the same mental thing that they do when they say Simple isn't the best player in the world and they everyone overrates him just because of the kills he gets? No, it's because the fucker is mechanically the best fucking player in the world. It's because his aim is so fucking sick and because the way he fucking pulls off the kills. That's why he's so good.
Oh, players are also insanely biased to super aggro players who get loads of kills because if you're this is why I love that they all had to give it up to coldzera just because he won every tournament and was dominating them all with MVP performances. So if you notice when SK was on top, they did all say coldzera was the best player. But the reason why that's funny is because years before, behind the scenes, the top players would come up to me and tell me, "Stop saying Device is good. He's not even the best player in that team." And I'd go, "Well, who is?" And I'm not joking. They would be saying Cajun B. The reason they thought Cajun B is they would have just remembered one game where he went ham and got 30 kills against them. And so that's all that mattered to them. That's how they because there's another detail you need to understand about pro players. Most pro players don't watch the rest of the tournament. They don't go home and watch tournaments they're not at. They're remembering shit based on the games they played in and maybe a little bit based on the prep that their coach and in-game leader do with them. So their view of the game is insanely limited. That's why nowadays, a bunch of them will even tell you that Nifty's some really good player. Now, anyone who's watched 100 Renegades games knows that's an objective mistruth. It's nonsense. But they're just remembering that amazing game he had against Mouse Sports. So he's got to be sick, right?
Yep. I mean, it's almost like the, all those videos that are everybody hates Brax or whatever. And it's just because, or everybody hates Stewie 2K. And it's just because he does these hyper aggro plays. And they're why would you do that? That makes me feel like an idiot.
His plays in the beginning didn't make sense.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems
still pulls it off.
I guess because they get killed in such a
stupid
aggravate. Yeah, an aggravating faction. I guess that sticks in their head.
It's why would you push this smoke? It makes no sense, and he still does it and pulls it off. Guess what? Congratulations
it's basically
to him pulling it off.
It's basically the Adria logic.
Oh yeah,
where he used to just berate his opponent who just beat him for not playing the correct way, even though, as he explained, if his opponent had played the correct way, Adria would have won.
By the
Try
way,
and wrap your head around that one.
By the way, fun fact for people who did not notice, Idra was a StarCraft player who decided to give up a game he was winning just because he was faked out by the opponent's shadow army. Right?
Yeah.
It's the opponent had much less units. He faked it that he had a bigger army, and Idra was "Fuck this, I'm out, GG, bang," and left the fucking stage.
So he's he's like somebody in quick play in Overwatch.
Yeah.
You don't play the right way, I rage hit you.
This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Gardner Wilson, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Daniel Yordanov, Robert Baxter, Travis Greb, Kyla Harris, James Harding, Caesar, and special thanks go out to Matt Shakowski and Jerky's Minion in particular. Want teasers for my upcoming content? How about asking me a question for my monthly AMA? Do you want to take part in a discussion about esports with me? How about suggesting a topic or a guest for my content? Put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today.